So, I am out here in the Korean countryside, just a little bit away from a city called Chungju, which is southeast of Seoul. I camped here last night in the back of my van, so if I'm sounding a little bit stuffy, it just got a little bit cold, so please bear with me. It's a beautiful morning. Spring is finally here in Korea, and it's just nice to feel the weather warming up a little bit. It means I can get out here into the Korean countryside and yeah, start exploring it a bit. So for these trips that I'm hoping to do this year, I'm going to, for the most part, be shooting on the Mamiya RZ67, a camera that I got last year sometime, and I've only shot a very little bit with it. I'm like kind of like inexperienced with it, so it's sort of fun to go back to, you know, trying to figure out a new camera. Sort of, I like trying to keep learning and keep pushing myself to try different things. And while I'm sure there are plenty of you that have worked with this camera before, this is an opportunity to watch me fumble with it for a while. So on the way out of Seoul yesterday, I stopped off at an abandoned petrol station, or I guess gas station, depending where you're from. And it's kind of a cliche to shoot a gas station or petrol station on film. But I thought the fact that this one was abandoned, and I'm still figuring out the camera somewhat, I would have a walk around and see what I could see. And it was a lot of fun. So I find myself continually drawn all through my project last year, serial music, through the projects I've worked on in between serial music and what I'm trying to do now, photographing Seoul neighborhoods, or Seoul residential neighborhoods, I should say. I find myself continually drawn to these ideas of like growth and obstruction. I think because that's been such a big part of my experience in Korea, like I've been able to grow my life and develop here in a way that has been very meaningful to me, and I'm incredibly grateful for. But living in a country where like your language is not the language, and there are lots of sort of there are lots of ways that you're not allowed to do the things that you want to do. Like even this right now, I think camping out here, let's just call it semi-legal, as far as I know. Anyway, like I've always been kind of drawn to this tension between growth and obstruction. And that's part of what I am looking for when I'm in these places. Right next to the petrol station was a peach farm, and I took a walk through the orchard, I guess, peach orchard. And while I was walking through there taking some photos, I met the owner of the peach farm, the farmer. He walked up to me, he was like, "What are you doing here? There's like nothing to take photos of." I asked him for a portrait, but alas, he wasn't interested. Very kindly though, he did give me gave me 2 drinks, a bottle of water and a bottle of strength, which tasted a lot better than I expected it to. Just these kinds of like small interactions and unusual places, the kind of places you don't see in Seoul, that I'm hoping to find this year by coming out here to explore. But for now, I am going to finish making and drinking this coffee. Oh shit. Well, can't get everything right.
When it comes to making thoughtful images, I often come back to a conversation I had with a friend over breakfast a few years ago. We were talking about the photo books and movies we love, and it got us thinking about just what makes a piece of art great. And while there obviously isn't a formula, there are some traits in common. The traits I'm talking about are a command of form, novel but relatable content, and the most elusive, spirit. The way I define all of this for myself is that a command of form means the work is consistent in how it appears, that the aesthetic choices are sustained, and that any breaks with the visual language that's been established are intentional. Content that is both novel and relatable to me means being presented with an idea that you never really considered before, but that makes a lot of sense. It's that all too rare feeling of realization dawning on you, like your mind's being open to something new. And as I said, the most elusive trait and hardest to define is spirit. I think work has spirit when it somehow describes more than itself, and feels connected to deeper, older ideas. Experiencing it makes you feel connected to something outside of yourself, but something shared. So if after a year of unfamiliar places, I have a collection of photos that have a consistent form, novel but relatable content, and some kind of recognizable spirit, then there's not much more I could ask for. We'll see. I stopped off in a village on a hill where there were more orchards and a few old houses dotting the road. For someone like me who lives in Seoul, it can be pretty refreshing to see an open landscape. I'm not really used to shooting this way yet, with a tripod and 10 frames that makes everyone feel like such a decision. But it's growing on me, and it makes me feel more responsible for the photos, the good ones and the bad ones. I wasn't looking to photograph anything in particular here, just noticing some of the details of the area. After a few minutes, I heard a distant scuffling from down below me, and looked over to see an elderly man with a cane in his hand, slowly making his way over. He was friendly, and spoke in that soft way older people in the countryside seem to do. He inched a little closer while we were talking. I asked him how long he'd lived in this area, and whether he liked it. After chatting for a while, I asked if he would stand for a photo. He laughed a bit, saying he was too old for a photo, but he walked over and stood quietly while I set everything up. This is a slow way to shoot, and before getting the camera, I was worried it would make photographing people a lot harder. I'd say it's been a mixed bag. The camera stands out, and I think it's intriguing for people, which makes that initial conversation about asking for a portrait a little bit easier. But I also get a bit uncomfortable when I feel like I'm taking too long with a portrait, like I'm being an inconvenience. It's probably something I'll get used to the more I do it though. And so far no one I've spoken to has seemed to mind. The biggest learning curve, I think, will be trying to figure out how to keep a light, playful quality to portraits, when setting them up can feel like a bit of a rigid experience. I'm hoping that as I grow in confidence with the camera, making portraits will become a smoother experience, and that people I photograph in the future will be as patient as this man. After the photo we shook hands, and I didn't catch everything he said, but I could tell by the way he held onto my hand that it was kind. Eventually he went on his way. I followed the same path in the van a few minutes later, but I couldn't see where he'd gone. After driving on a bit, I came across a small farmstead with a big tree out front. A woman with her arm in a sling walked over and asked if I was photographing Melon, which turned out to be the name of the dog, and said that Melon loved people. I thought about it for a second and said that I liked the look of this countryside scene and that that's what I was focusing on. She left after that, but soon her adult daughter came over to me and had a conversation in English about what I'm doing out here. It can be tricky to explain what you're doing when you're in the midst of figuring that out. I told her that I live in Seoul, but that the countryside feels new to me, and that's what I'm looking for. I try to always have an answer when people ask why I'm photographing in their spaces. After all, I'm an outsider in more ways than one here, and I'm asking to be accepted on little more than good faith. I walked around to the back of the house, where a farmer made a squawking sound and mimicked a vuvuzela when he found out I was from South Africa. There seems to be a lot of tools for some future construction lying around. Stuck in the ground were dozens of branches pointing to the sky. It's what I like about being in places that are so different from home. You can find things that are odd and out of place, but they're there and they're real and they feel like some kind of magic. And if you find and photograph enough of them, the end result will be a pretty unique collection of images. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Towards the end of the day, I pulled off the side of the road because I'd seen some patterns being made in the hill across the valley. The wind was picking up a bit, and I climbed onto the roof of my van to try and get an angle that would look over the visual clutter of the bushes on the hill just below me. It's pretty sketchy on the roof of my van. I'm not looking to make a habit of this. Try as I might, I couldn't quite frame the thing I was seeing. I only have the one lens, and it wasn't the right one for this scene. And while I thought about shooting it anyway, like I say, every frame counts.
Okay, so it's been a good day driving around Chungju and seeing what sort of odd little scenes I can find out here. I've got about a 3-hour drive back to Seoul, so I need to get on my way. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out a whole lot more often this year, trying to do some more camping and photo road trips and film it, just to try and show you what I love about living in this country. And while I want to keep working on photo projects, and I hope this will turn into a more fully realized project itself, the goal here is a little bit more, hopefully, open-minded. I just want to see what I can find that looks visually different or unique or interesting for me, and hopefully the process of driving around the country and finding those scenes can be something interesting for you as well. So I am going to get back on the road. It's a long drive to Seoul, and yeah, looking forward to being back out here again soon. Cheers.